Everybody tells me I shouldn't blame myself, but the reality is we do take responsibility for our children. And with Dylan, somewhere there was a lot of failure.
I want to know you're not a monster, Dylan.
Yeah, I feel bad.
What do you feel the worst about? Dylan, what do you feel bad about?
So I will always continue to feel guilty and responsible. Trust me, in the last 4.5 years, I've constructed, deconstructed, relived everything, wondered where I went right when I should have went left.
We need to understand what was going through your head, man. What happened, man?
That's my hell, is second guessing everything and trying to figure out what I could have did different.
The suspect's father says he thinks the death penalty would be appropriate.
I'm leaning that way, yes. You can't do something like that to a person and expect they'll get a free pass.
I was known as the father in Colorado in the media who wanted his son put to death. At the time all this happened, I believed in my heart, and I still believe, that Dylan should have received a death penalty. If you commit a crime of this nature, then you have to be prepared to pay the price, even if it's your own son. It's a terrible thing to say, but as a father, I go to bed every night hoping somebody kills him in prison. And that's a horrible thing to say, but that's how I feel. I cannot forgive for what he did. I don't want to hear no excuses. He's an animal, and I don't understand. He wasn't raised that way. It's terrible to say, but I hope before my life ends, I know his life has ended. When you look at things differently, because prior to the murder, you don't think anything like that's going to happen. After the worst of the worst happens that you don't even expect, then things that happened in the past tend to make sense. It was a Saturday morning. I had the boys, Dylan and his little brother, for the weekend. His mom and I were in the middle of a divorce. I was at a friend's house. Dylan and his little brother were outside. His little brother was riding his bike. It was corn silage chopping season, and so there's a lot of corn stalks laying everywhere. And as Dylan's little brother rode the bike by Dylan reached down, picked up a corn stalk and shoved in the front tire. Dylan's little brother went end over end. We were watching from the window. I went running out to see if his little brother was okay. He could have seriously hurt his little brother. Dylan's first words was, "I didn't do it." He didn't know we all saw it, but we all saw it. I told him that we'd seen everything from the window, and I said, you know, you're not telling the truth here.
You could have really hurt him doing that.
He just looked at me. He didn't show any remorse for what he did to his little brother, and he didn't really show any more remorse for lying. But, you know, I didn't think anything about it other than the kid being mischievous. I didn't think he was intentionally trying to seriously injure his little brother. It would have been my first sign. Unfortunately, I didn't see it at that time as something was going to happen or something was changing within him.
You go inside and tell him you're sorry.
When you look back on that, he started small, doing little mischievous things, and he worked himself all the way up to murder. Dylan was a lot like me personality-wise. He was impulsive, and there's no doubt he inherited my temper. I mean, I have a short temper. I've learned over the years to control it. I don't think Dylan ever learned how to control his temper. It was a couple of weeks after the bicycle incident.
Hello.
I think Dylan was 10, and Dylan's mom called me frantic on the phone, telling me that my son had just pulled a butcher knife on him and more or less, in her words, chased him through the house with a butcher knife.
Wait, you're saying he did what?
And she wanted to know what I was going to do about it. Well, my response was, I'll come get him. Honestly, I didn't know what to think. You don't want to think that your child is capable of doing something like that. In those days, the divorce was bitter, and I always thought that his mother could be overdramatic.
Okay, yeah, listen, I will come over, I will come get him.
I thought she could have been exaggerating. I mean, that had happened in the past. Maybe Dylan wasn't as bad as I was being told. Maybe Dylan did grab a knife, but I wasn't sure that he actually chased him down the hallway or anything like that. I just couldn't reconcile that in my brain with Dylan. The morning I picked up Dylan after the knife incident, he was calm. He wasn't agitated. He didn't look mad. He didn't say a lot. I spent the whole day with him. I just wanted him to tell me what had happened.
Your mom says things got a little out of control at her house.
He said they were not getting along at all. They were constantly bickering, constantly fighting, accusations being made. She accused him of lying all the time and trying to tear up the house. He would accuse her of being a bad mother. Of course, I had no proof of anything. I'm just listening to the different things being thrown back and forth. But Dylan decided that he didn't want to live with his mother. He wanted to live with his dad. So Dylan came to live with me in November of 2007. He thought he was entitled to whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and I started to say no. And he didn't like it. The day that he threw the tantrum in the electronics store, he wanted a digital music player.
But you said I could have one.
Yes, but I didn't say you could have one that costs a fortune.
But it was one of the expensive ones, and I just didn't want to spend that much money. And I said, no, we're not going to get that. And he got upset.
Why not?
He said, well, I really want this. I was like, well, you're really not going to get it. And he got mad, threw a fit.
I don't want that cheap junk.
Okay, then we're leaving.
Fine.
I just made it clear I wasn't going to spend that much money, and we left. He didn't say a word all the way home. He wouldn't talk to me. He just stared off into space. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe, he's sitting there hating me. I don't know. But he was clearly mad. He didn't get his way. I didn't say a word. I just listened to the radio. He had to learn that no is part of life. I just figured it was a spoiled child acting out because he wasn't getting his way. My fault in that is I just kind of hoped that Well would go away. But looking back, Dylan harbored a lot of anger, deep down anger, and it was like a volcano building to a pressure point. Relationship. When he became a teenager, Pretty much at that point in his life, anybody that was a female, he would challenge, whether they were a teacher, Cindy. He didn't trust women. He was angry with women. The school called me, and I had to come get him. The principal said, you know, your son's kind of out of control. He's calling the teacher names. He's using obscene language. He's being aggressive.
I'm not going to repeat the things he's been saying, but there's no place for that kind of behavior in this school.
Dylan sat in the principal's office, and they were telling me what he did, and I was looking at Dylan, and he could care less. He was staring off into space, like, yep, I did it. What are you guys gonna do? In my opinion, Dylan had a hatred toward his mother that boiled over to other females. I didn't know how to deal with his anger, his lying. I never thought it was gonna get dangerous. I thought he would outgrow it. We all do. I didn't know this, but he had told a lot of kids at the high school that one day he was gonna snap. And when he snapped, there was gonna be a lot of carnage. I never knew that until much later, when it was too late. It was a week and a half before Thanksgiving in 2012. Sunday afternoon, I get a phone call.
Hello? Yes, this is Dylan's father. What do you do now?
Dylan stole Cindy's pickup.
Oh my God.
Him and his friend had drove it across town numerous times that afternoon. He ran a four-way stop a few blocks from our home. He hit another car, totaled that car, and did quite a bit of damage to Cindy's vehicle. Nobody was injured, but he had no remorse or no concern about what he could have done. I was mad.
No, I don't want to speak to him. I want you to put him in cuffs, and I want you to take him away.
I was so upset, I want him arrested. He stole that car. I want him arrested. Charge him with grand theft.
He stole it, and he should be charged with that.
Cindy was very reluctant to press charges. I had to be very adamant about that. I was looking at it as tough love.
So, Cindy, I'm done. I don't know what else to do.
I said, we have to do this. And I think it would be a good lesson for him. I was hoping that if he went through the system, that he would realize that's not where he wanted to be. I pretty much forced Cindy to press charges against Dylan. So that night, they arrested him and took him to the juvenile facility. I think in his mind, he saw her as the one that tried to put him in jail. Even though I made it clear, I'm the one that pushed it. But in his mind, she became the target.
In my eyes, no matter how sorry I am, or how remorseful I am, it doesn't change the fact that I my life up over one thing. So, over one bad decision, I my life up.
When I insisted we press charges against Dylan for wrecking Cindy's pickup, he was on probation for a year. He had to have good grades, not get in trouble, and he was to pay Cindy back for the damages. So he had to get a job, and he didn't like that. It interfered with his ability to go be with his friends or goof off or whatever.
Why do I have to be in this stupid probation all year?
Quit complaining, Dylan. We're only in this mess because of what you did.
The day that he lunged at Cindy, I think that she had said something to him along the lines of, there's no two ways about it. You can't get out of it. You have to accept this is your fault. He couldn't accept that.
Shut up.
And I think that he was upset and humiliated that what he did got thrown back in his face.
I hate you.
And he tried to hit her. I literally, had to stop what was happening and push him back into his room. She was scared. I think that was the first time that she was actually considered she might have to be scared of Dylan. This wasn't good, and I hadn't really seen this before. I've seen him mad, but not to the point where he's trying to lash out. That's when I knew something was going on deeper than maybe I realized. He was more upset with Cindy because she was the one that actually pressed the charges on the court papers. Dylan took that as an act of war against him, I guess. He was making that progression to the dark side. It was becoming more and more obvious there was evil connected to him. On a Friday, he had gotten in some trouble at school. I grounded him. The next day was Saturday. Dylan was being a pain. Finally, I said, go to your friend's house. I'll call you when I'm ready to deal with you today. About 2 in the afternoon, I sent him a text. I said, you know, it's time for you to come home. Nothing happens. I sent another text. I said, if you don't come home, I'm gonna come find you, and it's not gonna be pretty. He sent a text, he's not coming home. He'll come home when he wants. There's a knock at the door about 45 minutes later.
Can I help you?
Are you Dylan's father?
Yes, I am. Is something wrong?
And there was this officer from the police department, and there was this young woman from, she said, Child Protective Services. They had been called by Dylan's friend's mother and Dylan because they were concerned about me abusing Dylan in the house.
What are you talking about?
The officer said Dylan doesn't know if it's safe for him to come back here. All this time, Dylan's sitting out in the police car across the street. He was pushing our buttons. It was him exacting revenge, trying to get his dad in trouble, showing me that he could do what he wanted to do, and he could make my life as miserable as I made his. By the time it was all said and done, Dylan was figured out by the police department to be a troublemaker, and they wanted no part of his accusations again. It was the late winter, early spring of 2015. It was a Saturday night. I had to go get something out of Cindy's vehicle, and as I opened up her vehicle, the lights come on. And out beside the house, there was a pet carrier with a shovel next to it and a can of barbecue lighter fluid. And I thought, that's odd. That's not mine. I go back in the house. Dylan and his friend's in his bedroom. I call him out in the living room.
What do you guys know about the lighter fluid and stuff hidden outside the house?
Well, that's not ours.
Let's go.
I knew he was lying to me. It was there. They put it there. They said they were gonna go. They left. I looked at Cindy and I said, you know, something's not right.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I suspected they were gonna catch a cat, go out to the fairgrounds, douse it with lighter fluid and light it on fire and watch it burn. It made me sick, it scared me, and I needed to let somebody know.
I better call somebody.
So we called the police. An officer went out and started patrolling the town, but he ran across Dylan and his friend. And so he read them kind of the riot act. If we catch you harming an animal, you will do prison time. Dylan came home, he came in the house, he didn't say much. I said, I understand the police officer had a talk with you.
you even think about doing something like that again, that's it.
I don't want to ever hear of anything like this or see anything or suspect anything like this again, because I will not hesitate to have you put in jail for abusing an animal. He nodded his head, and that was that.
John, what would you change if you could change anything?
I would not have killed her. Or I would not have hit her to the point where she ended up being dead.
You would just hit her until she was hurt?
No, I would not have even done that at all.
I think Dylan's moral compass was just spinning out of control. He was definitely going down a darker road. When he turned 18, he could make his own decisions. Then he decided to drop out of school. He'd had enough. It was about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. He looked at me and he says, "I'm moving out."
Where are you going?
I'm done.
Done with what?
With this. I'm leaving.
I wasn't happy about him dropping out of school. I told him he was going to have to get a job if he wasn't going to go to school. He had to support himself.
What are you going to do about money?
Don't worry. I have a plan.
His whole plan was to mooch off all of his friends. He wanted to go live with a friend somewhere where he didn't think he had to work.
Okay, well, you're old enough. I can't stop you, Dylan.
I said, "Get your things, I guess." Part of me was concerned, but another part of me was relieved because I thought maybe we can get some peace in this household. He is 18 years old. He's at the point where he needs to start making his own decisions. I still hadn't given up on him. I still had hoped that we could figure something out for him. Get him involved in some program or get his GED and get him in a community college, learn him a trade, do something. I did worry about him as a father, wondering what he was doing and what kind of trouble he was going to get into without any supervision whatsoever. But in the home, it was just Cindy and I. Things were peaceful, quiet, and it was just easier for everybody. He would often call or come over begging for money because he had no income. Dylan was always welcome to come home for dinner on Sundays. That's when the money started disappearing when he would come visit.
Oh, I've been meaning to ask you. Have you seen my gold bracelet?
Oh, you mean the one that went missing last Sunday? No, I haven't seen it recently.
One of Cindy's bracelets disappeared that I had custom made for her. Objects of sentimental value disappeared. Anything that could be worth anything at a pawn shop disappeared. We did everything we could to make his life easier. And now here we are in the late teens, getting close to the 20s, and he's turned into a hoodlum. And that irritated me beyond all imagination.
You can't come over here anymore.
He was told, if I'm out of town, you're not to be at our house. If Cindy's home alone, you can't come there. And he said he understood. It was extremely disappointing that I had to tell my son he wasn't welcome to my home if I wasn't there. We had discussed about getting a home security system, but we opted not to do that. You know, now looking back, I wish I would have had a home security system. It could have changed everything. Cindy was at home in Colorado. Dylan was living across town with one of his friends. I was 250 miles south in Texas on a flying job. Whenever I left town, I always tried to leave a 9mm under the bed for her for protection. I had showed her how to use it. For my peace of mind, I just said, here, you know, we'll leave this under the bed. If you need it, it's there. But this time, I think I was halfway to Texas and I realized I forgot it. I texted her and I said, I didn't put the gun under the bed. It's in the cabinet. She replied, okay, I'll take care of it later. It never got taken care of. It was left in the cabinet. It was in the evening. He called and said, are you still in Texas? I said, yes, I'm still in Texas. How long are you gonna be there? And I said, I don't know. I'm gonna be here for a while. I probably won't be home for weeks. He says, you know, I had a funny feeling that something's gonna happen to somebody in our family. I thought that was odd, but I was tired. I didn't wanna deal with his BS. I didn't wanna have to listen to him beg for money. I just said, I'm gonna go. I'll talk to you later. Last time I talked to Cindy,
Hello?
it was late Thursday night, April 28th, 2016. I was tired. I've been flying all day, and she wanted to talk. And I just told her, I'm too tired to talk. I just need to go to bed. And then later that night, after I was asleep, she sent me a text. She knew I'd had a bad day. So she texted me that, I love you, John. I hope you will always know and believe that. You are my best friend. And I try my best to make your life better. You're a caring, compassionate husband. You have given more to me than anyone else. I can see us growing old together. I just want you to be happy and at peace with your life. All I want is my loving husband and my friend, and no one. She was dead an hour and a half later.
I ended up hitting her. Turned out to be way more than I thought.
What was going through your head when you were doing that?
The morning of April 29th, I woke up about 7:30. Usually I have a text saying, be careful, I love you, fly low and safe. I didn't have that text. I don't think nothing of it, other than maybe she's mad at me because I kind of blew her off so I could go to bed the night before. About 1:30, I get a phone call from Colorado.
Hello?
Turned out to be the Burlington Police Department. And the officer on the phone, he just said, do you know where your wife is?
Yeah, she's home today.
There's a rumor around your son broke into your home and beat up your wife and stole your firearms.
What?
I said, where are you? He said, well, I'm in front of your house. We don't want to break down the door. And I said, I live there. I'm telling you, break down the door. I want you in the house.
Just do it.
I said, we're going to go in there, and we'll call you right back. I'm just trying to keep a cool head and not get too excited. And I figured there has to be a logical explanation. Everything's fine. 45 minutes goes by. I don't hear nothing. Now I'm starting to think the worst. And I called back the number the officer called on, which was a cell phone. Somebody answered that phone, but they didn't talk. All I could do was hear yelling and screaming and siren.
Hello? Hello?
It was about 10 minutes later. One of the officers called and said, "We found your wife. She's in the bedroom. She's gone. It's a horrible crime scene. You need to come home." I just literally fell down to my knees, and I remember saying no. I started to think somebody was playing a horrible joke.
Police say they found her body Friday. The evidence tape is still up today on the home where she lived with her husband. Police say the two suspects, Dylan Eason, her stepson, and Isaiah Churchwell, broke into her home Friday.
About 12:30 or so, Dylan and his friend broke into our home. Dylan immediately attacked Cindy. Isaiah held her while Dylan punched her, knocked her out.
Friends say Easton was very violent and told them he was going to snap one day.
She started coming to. Dylan grabbed a crowbar, went back into the bedroom, and proceeded to beat her to death.
Neighbors tell us Dylan Easton was a high school dropout with a troubled past, but they never expected this.
About 20 minutes he beat her in the dark. According to Isaiah Churchwell's testimony, Isaiah kept hearing thuds, thud, thud, thud. He could hear Cindy gurgling. Isaiah came in and stopped him and said, "That's enough." Isaiah said in his testimony that the crowbar was wet, which would have been Cindy's blood. Had the 9mm been left under the bed like we normally did, it could have changed the outcome. It would have spooked him. Even if she didn't hit anything, she just fired the gun off, it would have spooked him. At that point, when I knew all the facts, I was flat out angry. And I wanted my pound of flesh, and I wanted revenge. And I'm not sorry for it. Dylan called. Said, "What's going on, Dad?" And I said, "Dylan, you know what's going on. Something happened to Cindy. The cops are looking for you. I'm coming home. You better hope they find you before I do, because I'm coming home and hell's coming with me." Dylan was so petrified of what I was going to do to him that he hung up on me, and he literally ran to the police department to turn himself in. He was more afraid of me than being arrested. This picture was taken weeks before the murder. That's what that sweet little boy standing by that airplane became. He just looks gone. Lost, evil, mean, angry, confused. That's the evil he became right there. The day that Dylan murdered Cindy, it was a switch that flipped in me. It went from love to hate in a second. It was that quick that the hatred set in, and it's never left. I was so angry with what he did. I was so full of anger and wanted revenge and justice. If he hadn't turned himself in, I was gonna hunt him down like an animal. And everybody knew it.
Developing tonight, these two young men are under arrest. They're charged in
the homeless person that he killed or our next door neighbor, I would still feel the same way. He did something horrible. He needs to pay for it. They found him guilty of felony murder, which is automatic life without parole, sitting in prison, eating 3 meals a day, while my wife is buried in a grave, and she's robbed of her grandchildren. She's robbed of her life with me. I'm robbed of my life with her. I don't think that's justice. He needs to pay for this with his life. I will not ever change my mind. It's a terrible thing to say, but as a father, I go to bed every night hoping somebody kills him in prison. And that's a horrible thing to say, but that's how I feel. I cannot forgive for what he did. I don't want to hear no excuses. With his attitude and his smart mouth, he'll probably wind up somewhere on prison grounds dead with his throat cut. And that's just as good to me. I had family members tell me I'm a bad father, that I should be supporting my son. I never stopped loving him until he killed Cindy. That's where everything changed for me. I can't forgive him. I don't know what else to do. If I show my son any compassion after what he did, I'm betraying him.
The headline read, "The Saint Who Sells Salvation." My crew hated it. I said she twisted my words, but I knew she hadn't. She had only repeated them without the charm I used to hide their rot. That same week, I got a message from an American curator, an invitation to a collective show in New York titled Icons Unbound. They wanted to ship one of my church murals, literally cut it out of the wall and mount it inside a museum. Authentic decay, they called it. I called it desecration. Then I signed the export papers. When they paid, the zeros blurred my hesitation. When they installed the mural behind glass, I told myself the exposure would spread the message globally. When I saw tourists posing beside it, smiling, I told myself the pain had purpose. And when I cashed the check, I didn't tell myself anything at all. Fame made me allergic to stillness. Stillness reminded me of who I was before the noise, so I drowned it. I started organizing live painting nights in abandoned warehouses across Recife. Music, lights, bodies moving in rhythm while I painted under strobes. The city watched me become its spectacle. People chanted my name between beats. I began to believe I was more movement than man. Once, a fan handed me a Bible and asked me to sign it. I hesitated, then wrote my name across the cover in silver paint. She kissed the page like it meant something sacred. I should have felt shame. Instead, I felt adored. That was worse. My father stopped answering my calls. My mother still sent voice messages that started with prayers and ended with silence. "Your hands were given for good," she said once. I almost replied, "I'm giving them to everyone." But I deleted the message before it reached her. Father Miguel tried to reach me too. He left a note under my studio door. "Art is only holy when it breaks your own heart first." I didn't read it until months later, when the paint had dried over my conscience. By then, I'd lost count of the commissions, the lovers, the lies. One week, I was painting in a nightclub for charity. The next, in a cathedral courtyard, by permission. The same hands that once trembled from faith now trembled from caffeine and pressure. I remember one particular night, an art gala in Salvador, lit by chandeliers that cost more than my childhood home. They had me paint live while a violinist played Bach remixes. Each brushstroke earned applause, as if redemption could be performed by demand. When the final note hit, I wrote, "Forgive us," across the wall. People clapped like it was poetry. No one asked who the U.S. was. Later, a woman in a red dress approached me, a gallery owner from Lisbon. She said she could make me immortal in Europe. Her perfume smelled like power, her words like prophecy. I flew to Portugal 2 weeks later, told myself it was for exposure. It was really for escape. Lisbon's walls were clean, almost polite. I missed the chaos of Recife, the grime, the noise, the saints who looked like sinners. So I painted what I missed. A saint kneeling in the mud, hands dirty, halo cracked. The local papers called it a return to roots. But it wasn't return. It was exile dressed as art. I'd reached the point where everything I did had an audience, and nothing I felt had a witness. The applause grew louder, the rooms emptier. Each interview recycled the same words: rebellion, faith, protest, until they turned to ash in my mouth. I began drinking alone after shows. Sometimes I'd walk along the river and talk to my reflection. I'd ask it what it wanted. It never answered. It only rippled back the lights, bright, broken, and meaningless. The last exhibition before it all collapsed was in Sao Paulo, Heaven for Sale. The theme was religion in consumer culture. My installation was a confessional booth covered in mirrors, with spray paint inside so visitors could confess in color. The crowd adored it. They wrote words like guilt, desire, power, money across their reflections. When the last visitor left, I stood inside the booth alone and wrote one word: empty. I stared at it until the paint fumes stung my eyes. Outside, the applause was still echoing from another artist's piece, a neon crucifix spinning in time with club music. I realized then that we'd turned sin into spectacle, and spectacle into salvation. The church had become my canvas, and I had become its advertisement. At dawn, I walked out of the gallery and wandered the streets until I reached a small chapel tucked between 2 skyscrapers. Its doors were locked, but someone had painted over the entrance a single line in red: "He still listens." I touched the words. The paint was fresh. For the first time in years, I wanted to pray, but the only thing that came out was a whisper: "Do you still listen to me?" The city answered with silence, and the faint hiss of rain beginning to fall. It began the way decay always does, quietly. Not with a scandal, not with an arrest, but with whispers that felt like rust spreading under the paint. At first I ignored them. They said my murals were being used in political campaigns. They said the candidate I had once distanced myself from now projected my art onto his billboards, twisting rebellion into endorsement. They said I'd sold out the same walls I once called sacred. I laughed. Then I stopped laughing. Because the photos were real. The skyline mural, the one with the bridge I refused to paint, had been edited, altered, reframed. The billboard showed my cracked mirror reflecting that same bridge, now shining and whole. They'd turned my protest into propaganda, and the city believed it. At first, I tried to issue a statement. I called it misrepresentation, unauthorized use. But the damage was already circulating through news feeds and parishes. I was no longer the artist of conscience. I was the apostate who sold out faith for fame, a false prophet with a spray can. The irony burned. I had spent years accusing priests of hypocrisy, only to become their mirror. Then came the vandalism. Someone painted over my mural at Coke, the one for Doña Lucia, with the words, "Where is she now?" I went there in person. The chapel walls were cracked, the pews soaked from another flood. No cameras this time, no crowds, no applause. Just silence, and a smell of rot. A boy recognized me. He pointed at the words and asked, "Did you forget her?" I couldn't answer, because the truth was I had. I had forgotten all of them, the names, the faces, the reasons I started. I stood there, watching the rain blur the paint, and for the first time in years, I didn't lift a can to fix it. Some walls deserve to stay ruined. That week, I lost the campaign contract, then the gallery deals, then the documentary invitations. Sponsors withdrew under ethical concerns. Even my crew, the friends who once stayed up nights painting with me, drifted away, tired of defending a saint who no longer believed in his own sermons. When the silence finally came, it wasn't punishment. It was relief. The noise had been feeding on me for so long, I didn't realize how light my head felt without it. But lightness turns to emptiness when you've built your identity on echoes. I tried to paint again, alone. A small wall in an alley, no cameras, no money. But my hands hesitated. Every stroke looked rehearsed, hollow, like a ritual stripped of its god. I repainted the same figure over and over, a faceless man holding a brush that dripped blood instead of paint. Each version looked more like me. When I finally stopped, I sat against the wall until the sun rose. The colors were beautiful. Then the rain came and washed them away within an hour. It felt deserved. A few weeks later, I got a message from Isabella, the journalist from Rio. She'd heard I'd gone quiet. She wanted to know if I'd comment on the fall of the saint. I deleted the message, but her words lingered. The fall of the saint. It sounded poetic until you're the one breaking your bones in silence. Money ran out faster than I expected. The apartment went first, then the studio. I moved into an abandoned building near the port, graffiti already crawling up its sides like ivy. My neighbors were ghosts, addicts, kids who tagged for fun. They didn't know who I was, and that anonymity felt like mercy. Sometimes I'd hear them whisper my old tag, O Santo da Rua, not knowing the man who painted it was sleeping one floor above them. I wanted to tell them to stop using the name, but I couldn't steal it back. It didn't belong to me anymore. Then, one night, I heard shouting outside. I looked out from the window and saw a group of boys tagging the side of a church, the same parish where Father Miguel used to serve. They were spray painting the words, "Faith is for fools." I ran down, still half drunk, and grabbed the nearest can from one of their hands. "Don't," I said. They laughed. "What are you, the paint police?" I pointed at the wall. "That's not protest." One of them recognized me then. His smile twisted. "The graffiti saint telling us not to paint? You think you own rebellion?" He shoved me. The can clattered on the stones. The sound echoed like a gunshot. When I looked down, the paint had burst, red. bleeding across my shoes. They left, laughing, their sneakers slapping through the puddles. I stayed, watching the red spread like guilt. And in that moment, I realized I'd become the thing I once fought. The censor, the hypocrite, the ghost of passion turned into warning. The next morning, I went inside the church. It was empty. Dust coated the pews like ash. But in the back, near the altar, I saw something new. A small mural. Mine, but not mine. It was my old angel, the one I painted years ago bleeding on the wall of Santa Lucia, repainted by someone else in fresh color. Underneath, a new word had been added. Escutamos. We listen. I fell to my knees, not from faith, from fatigue. Someone had picked up my broken language and turned it back into prayer. And for the first time in years, I cried without cameras. The crying didn't fix anything. I still had no money, no direction, no one waiting. But it stripped me clean. Grief can be purification if you let it. And that night, I knew what I needed to do. Not for forgiveness, not for fame, but for silence. I returned to the basilica, the one with Deus esta farto. The wall was decaying, paint peeling, rain scars running like veins. No one had dared repaint it. It stood there like a tombstone for everything I'd ruined. I sat across the street until dawn, watching the light crawl up the bricks. And when the bells rang, I stood, crossed myself without thinking, and whispered, "One last wall." That phrase carried me through the next 3 days. I collected leftover cans from my old studio, borrowed ladders, mixed colors like confessions. When night fell, I painted. Slowly, deliberately, without an audience. The mural began with a single hand reaching up from the water. Not drowning, reaching. Above it, I painted the outline of a church, its walls cracked but luminous. And across the center, I wrote one word, in the same red that once stained my shoes. Amen. It wasn't blasphemy. It wasn't rebellion. It was surrender. When I finished, I sat at the base of the wall, exhausted, trembling. A stray dog came and lay beside me. Somewhere, a siren wailed, fading into distance.